So I'm here to welcome our Facebook, YouTube listeners and watchers. We are here this morning to welcome all of you, and we're just delighted that you're here with us. The first thing we're going to do right now is do our statement of being, and the words will be on the screen. And now I'd like to welcome Amber up to do our opening prayer. Our contemplative question this morning is, how can I honor my doubts as signposts and guides rather than as stopping blocks?
Good morning. Oh, it sounds so different up here. It's nice and full and loud. My own voice in the morning. So I'm going to ring the singing bowl, and we'll have 2 minutes of contemplation where we can just breathe and get in the flow, after which I'll begin my prayer. And maintaining that peace, I will begin a treatment, a prayer, knowing that the Creator is magnificent. It goes by many names: God, Source, Spirit, Ba'aula, Sugmad, Love, the universe, our higher power. But whatever we call it, we know that that is all that there is. And if we so choose, we can see God in everything. We can hear it in the baby's cry, see it in a wag of a tail on a puppy, in the wisdom from our elders. God is love, peace, joy, forgiveness, calm. Even our shadow, God is. And knowing that God is, I know that I am. I'm made up of that same God substance. That source energy lives in me, breathes me, is me right now. God's life is my life. And I know for myself that there's a seemingly imperfect perfection that's stirred when doubt crosses my mind. But being connected with the one mind of God means that all the answers are already known. They're inside me, just waiting for my consciousness to catch up so all can be revealed with ease and grace. I understand that fear is simply the absence of faith, and my choices to believe make that thing so. I know for myself and for you that darkness is simply the absence of light. I know I can't walk into a lit, bright room and turn on the dark switch. It's uncomfortable, but is it real? I release all fear, all lack, judgment, indecision, doubt. I release it all in this moment, and I send it back into the nothingness from whence it came, knowing that the power of God can give me comfort and peace that I desire. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful remembering this knowledge. I'm grateful for this teaching that breaks it down to the basics. Change your thoughts and change your life. I'm grateful for our small but mighty center and our senior minister in his absence, Reverend Robert, all of our members and friends. We know that whatever we sow into the soil, we will reap. And so we place all that good stuff into the soil. We place love and joy and peace and calm. And we won't dwell on those seemingly bad things anymore. We're not going to dig up the soil to see if our blessing is growing. We just release it and know that our good is already here. I'm complete. And if you so choose, please say together with me now, and so it is. It's good to see everybody today. I was running late this morning. I sing in a band sometimes, and so I've been singing all day yesterday and then getting up in the morning, and then I help another service that starts at 7. And it's just been one of those mornings. And then I come here, I talk to Denise on the phone in a panic, saying, I'm not going to make it on time. What are we going to do? And she said, relax and know. Relax and know. There was extra parts to that sentence, but she reminds me of the truth. And I love that about our practitioners and each and every one of you. This song is a Ricky Byers favorite. I hear she's in town. And I don't know if anybody has gotten a chance to see her, but I'm going to sing this on behalf of her. I took the music online. It was performed by Cheryl Renee at the Mile High Church. So the musicians that you hear in the background are the Mile High Band. So enjoy this song. Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth and the stars and all of creation. God is creator, whole and all. needing us to shine its light, has me, has you, so use me, oh God. I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Oh, I trust you to command my hands. What must they do? Command my life. It's here for you. God is the love that heals all creation. God is creator, makes all things new, needing us to shine its light as me, as you, so use me, oh God. I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Oh, yeah. Leading us to shine its light. God's leading us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light as me. He shines as you. Use me, God. Oh, I trust you completely, and I'll stand by you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Show me all that show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Thank you. Bobby can come back and introduce our speaker.
Well, and I might want to introduce myself at the same time, since I didn't bother to do that earlier. I'm Bobby Hall, and I'm a longtime member and also the board treasurer. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, mainly because, well, and partly because I know him from being a member of the member council for our national organization together for 3 years, 3 years of mine. So, without further ado, I will let you know that Lee Valentine is our guest speaker today. He has been affiliated with the Centers for Spiritual Living for over 20 years. He joined the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta in 2005 and served the spiritual community in many ways for 15 years. This included a 4-year term on the Board of Trustees, with the last 2 years as president. Lee now calls East Bay Church of Religious Science his spiritual home. He is an active member of the East Bay community, including managing their new member orientation program. He has had the distinct privilege of delivering the Sunday message 4 times at SLCA. Oh, Saint. Of Atlanta, and 4 times at East Bay. Lee previously served 2 terms as an elected member of the CSL Member Council, including 3 years as co-chair. During his tenure on the Member Council, Lee participated in a variety of initiatives, including spearheading a project to create CSL's first mobile app for daily affirmations and hosting the first ever member virtual gathering. He received the CSL Lay Member Meritorious Award in 2023. Lee enjoys being a student of New Thought. Although he is not a licensed practitioner, he does consider himself a practitioner, with the lowercase p, of our teaching through his daily interaction and those around him. And I can confirm that that's true. So without further ado, Lee.
Thank you, Bobby. So I want to tell you a little bit more about how I got here this morning, and I don't mean what freeway I took from the East Bay. So as Bobby mentioned, she and I served together on the CSL Member Council. I served from 2018 to 2024, and she served from 2020 to 2023. So we had overlapping terms between 2020 and 2023, but I didn't actually meet her in person until February of 2023 in Santa Rosa, when CSL had several in-person gatherings around the country. They had one in Santa Rosa, they had one in Phoenix, and they had another in Dallas. So even though we had known each other for 3 years, we only met in person at the end of that 3-year period. And while we were there, Bobby asked me if I would be interested in coming to speak here one day. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So that was February of 2023. Roll the clock forward to April of 2026. So just last month, Bobby and I and Reverend Robert were at the CSL convention in Reno. And I got to meet Reverend Robert for the first time. And before the convention was over, Reverend Robert asked me if I would be interested in coming to speak here one Sunday. And I immediately told him, I was flattered that he would consider me and that I would be honored to do that. And the next thing I said was, what took you so long to ask? But in all seriousness, I've had the opportunity to visit over 20 CSL communities over the years, and there are some ministers that are not comfortable sharing their pulpit with anyone who is not a licensed practitioner or an ordained minister. So Reverend Robert, when you are watching this service, I thank you for having faith in my abilities and not doubting my capability to deliver this message. And speaking of doubt, today, this Sunday, is the last in our 5-part series on doubt. In weeks 1 and 2, you heard Reverend Robert talk about how we can accept self-doubt as an opportunity to learn and nourish our faith. And in weeks 3 and 4, you heard both Reverend Robert and Reverend Kathleen talk about how sharing and exploring our joint personal doubts can create fertile ground for spiritual development, both individually and collectively. And this week, I'll close out the topic by trying to tie everything together. And I make frequent use of quotes in my talks, and for a couple of reasons. One, I recognize that there are a lot of people out there that know a whole lot more about these topics than I do, so why rely solely on my words when I can leverage theirs? And another is, in doing my research, if I come across a nugget of spiritual wisdom, I want to make sure that there's no risk of me plagiarizing that, so I will give credit to the speaker. And so in my attempt to come up with a quote to kind of establish a theme for this week's talk, I found one from Mark Buchanan in his book entitled "Your God is Too Safe: Rediscovering the Wonder of a God You Can't Control." He said, "Sometimes doubting is not a lack of faith, but an expression of it." And I thought this was a very fitting affirmation of today's theme. But then it occurred to me that, okay, the challenge is building a case and creating a narrative to support that position. And it made me think back of about a book that I was introduced to early in my professional career as an engineering project manager. And the book was actually published in 1954, long before I entered the workforce and even before I was born. But it was entitled "How to Lie with Statistics." And with statistics, just like with philosophy and theology, some of you will probably agree that once you establish a conclusion, or once you determine a conclusion that you want to reach or want to draw, it's not too hard to come up with evidence or come up with justification to support that conclusion. But I promise to you that I won't lie to you this morning, or at least not knowingly. So when I first heard the CSL topic for this week, doubt as devotion, it made me think of doubt as a spiritual practice. And I imagine going up to 3 different people and asking them, what their favorite spiritual practice was. And I imagine going up to the first person who might say, "Oh, I keep a gratitude journal, and every night before I go to bed, I make an entry in that gratitude journal of at least three things that I'm grateful for." The second person might say, "Oh, I find that every day after lunch my energy level gets low, so I have a practice of meditating for 10 minutes, and I find that centers me and helps re-energize me for the rest of the day." Third person, "Well, every morning when I wake up, I lie in bed for a few minutes, and in the quiet stillness, I center myself and say, I wonder what I can cast doubt on today." Excuse me? So it kind of threw me off, because doubt as a spiritual practice, I'm not so sure about that. But I know that Reverend Robert and Reverend Kathleen shared with you plenty of references about doubt from a spiritual perspective by sharing some thoughts from New Thought, some quotes from New Thought. And some of these that I copied down after watching the service over the last 4 weeks included, "I accept my doubt as the opportunity to learn. Self-doubt can become a doorway to healthy reflection and deeper connection with ourselves and others. And sharing our collective doubts in community is a pathway to building a more just and thoughtful world." And just last Sunday, Reverend Kathleen shared with you this one. She said, "May our doubts become doorways into wisdom." But I have to tell you, there are many more references to doubt from New Thought and other spiritual and religious teachings that look at it from the opposite, meaning not so good perspective. And here are a few quotes from Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind that support that. He said, "We must definitely neutralize confusion and doubt." Another one, "All doubt and fear must go, and in their place must come faith and confidence, for we shall be led by the Spirit into all good." And finally, he said, "We must say to doubt, get out. I know that the faith within me now neutralizes all doubt." And it's not just Science of Mind and New Thought. There's a passage actually in the Quran that says, "The true believers are only those who believe in Allah and his messenger, never doubting, and strive with their wealth and their lives in the cause of Allah. They are the ones true in faith. And doubt is also one of the 5 hindrances in Buddhism. And according to that teaching, these 5 hindrances are mental states that act as primary barriers to meditation, mindfulness, and self-mastery. And one of those hindrances is skeptical doubt. And it's described as a state of indecisiveness, uncertainty, or constant questioning that causes confusion and prevents a person from progressing towards enlightenment. And one source I read actually referred to doubt as the mother of all hindrances, because when it is in control of your mind, you don't have enough energy to engage. Now, I know Reverend Robert likes to share with you a joke every Sunday, so I found one about someone who doubts the existence of God. An atheist is out enjoying a quiet day fishing when the Loch Ness Monster suddenly flips his boat into the air. As he flies towards the beast's gaping mouth, he screams, "Oh God, help me!" Time freezes, the clouds part, and a booming voice says, "I thought you didn't believe in me." The man pleads, "Give me a break. 30 seconds ago, I didn't believe in the Loch Ness Monster either." And why is it that God always has a booming voice? How come no one says a squeaky voice came down from the heavens? That one we'll have to contemplate on a little bit. And of course, let's not forget the most famous doubter of all, and so famous that he has become a figure of speech. And that would be the disciple Thomas, commonly referred to as Doubting Thomas. Now, Thomas was the only disciple who missed the first appearance of the master teacher Jesus after his resurrection, but he refused to believe it until he could personally touch Jesus' wounds. As is written in the Bible in chapter 20 of the book of John, when Jesus rose from the dead, he appeared before the disciples, but Thomas was not present. The other disciples told Thomas afterwards in verse 25, "We have seen the Lord." And that verse continues, "But Thomas said to them, 'Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hands into his side, I will not believe.'" That chapter continues in verses 26 through 28. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." So this example is specific to the teaching of the Christian faith, but what conclusion can we draw from it? Or in other words, is doubt good or is doubt bad when it comes to our faith? Well, I can say in response to that question, is doubt good or is doubt bad? The answer is a resounding yes. And this is just one example of paradox, as it appears in many spiritual teachings, just as it does in much of life. And for anyone who needs a refresher, a paradox is a self-contradictory statement that reveals a hidden meaning or a deeper truth. And there's some examples from everyday life that seem more like riddles. But for example, have you ever picked up a document like a contract and seen one page that's blank until you look at the very bottom and says, "This page intentionally left blank"? Okay, well, is it blank or is it not? And what if I told you that I'm a compulsive liar? I never tell the truth. Well, okay, so if I never tell the truth, is the statement that I'm a compulsive liar, is that a lie? So you can see the riddle. And I've been into an establishment that serves alcohol on a couple of different occasions, different establishments, and seen a sign above the bar that says, "Free beer tomorrow." So you come back the next day and you say, "Where's my beer?" The bartender points, "Tomorrow, got to come back tomorrow." And there's a story from Groucho Marx, and I assume it's true because it was in his autobiography. In the 1940s, he was persuaded by some of his friends to join an exclusive social club in Beverly Hills called the Friars Club. Well, he found out he wasn't getting much use out of his membership, so he sent a telegram. Remember, this was the 1940s. He sent a telegram to the manager, and he said, "Please accept my resignation. I don't want to belong to any club that would accept me as a member." And I have an example of paradox that I personally experienced just a few weeks ago. I flew out of SFO to the East Coast, and I had recently signed up for touchless ID to go along with my TSA pre-check, but I had never used it. And there was no one in line at the TSA checkpoint when it was time to go through security, so I said, I'm going to give it a try. So the TSA agent told me to stand on 2 shoe prints that were about 6 feet away from him, and there was a camera in front of him. 2 or 3 seconds later, he gave me the thumbs up, and he said, "You're good." So it occurred to me in that moment that that touchless ID was the least intrusive way of going through a security checkpoint that I had ever experienced. But at the same time, it was the most intrusive. It was the least intrusive because I didn't have to show my ID, didn't have to show my boarding pass, just stand there, 2 seconds later, you're good. It was the most intrusive because it occurred to me how much of my personally identifying information that's in the hands of the government. Because when I signed up for the touchless ID, I didn't have to send them a picture, I didn't have to do anything. I just went on the Southwest Airlines app and clicked the button that says I want to be in touchless ID. So at some point, they had to capture an image of my face when I checked in for another flight. And now that biometric data is living somewhere out there, and who knows where. And with the proliferation of security cameras everywhere these days, I can confidently say now, I can't go anywhere without someone knowing where I am and what I'm doing. So the paradox is, in that moment, that way of going through security, the least intrusive and the most intrusive at the same time. And some other common examples of paradox you may be familiar with are less is more. I heard somebody say that this morning. I think it was Chris. Life is short, but the day is long. If you want to find your soulmate, stop looking. Here's one from Socrates. The only thing that I know is that I know nothing. And one from Mother Teresa. When I had nothing to lose, I had everything. Now, as spiritual teachings go, Taoism probably takes first place when it comes to the use of paradox. A foundational paradox in Taoism is action without action, also known as wu-wei. It asserts that by letting go of forceful effort and aligning your actions with the natural flow of the universe, you can accomplish more with less resistance. Or the way it's described in Taoism, do nothing and nothing is left undone. And within the metaphysical teachings of the Unity Church, there's reference to the divine paradox of God as principle versus God as presence. This inherent contradiction says that God is both the absolute impersonal foundation of all existence, as well as an intimate, personal, and accessible reality. Rather than an either-or scenario where you view God as either a rigid scientific law or a personal, emotional being, Unity teaches that it can be both and. You can both rely on the principle of God for truth, and you experience the presence of God through prayer and feeling. And a paradox in New Thought was shared with you by Reverend Robert in week 3 of this series, in a quote that he read from The Science of Mind that says, "Change is always taking place within that which is changeless." And of course, the Bible is full of examples of paradox. You must die to live. The last will be first and the first will be last. You're strong when you are weak. And God, who cannot die, died on the cross in the embodiment of Jesus. And God is sovereign and humans have free will. And here's one from the lyrics of Amazing Grace. The second verse of that hymn starts off, "'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved." But at the end of the day, the most fundamental paradox within any religious or faith-based doctrine was best captured by St. Thomas Aquinas, who was a 13th century Italian theologian, and philosopher. And he's well known for his writings that reconciled faith with reason. His most famous work was the Summa Theologica, or the Summary of Theology. And although it was never finished, it's a massive book that, among other things, outlines the 5 logical arguments for God's existence. And his most famous quote reads, "To one who has faith, no explanation is necessary. To one without faith, no explanation is possible." How many of you have read Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsch? So several of you. So for those of you who have not, it's actually a series of books written by the author. It was published in 1995, and it stayed on the first book in the series stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for 137 weeks. And it was written at a time in the author's life when he was going through some challenges, to say the least. He lost his job, he had lost his family, he had some health challenges, and he was basically homeless at the age of 52. And he wrote an angry letter to God asking questions about why his life wasn't working. And after writing down all of his questions, he heard a voice over his shoulder, probably a booming voice, that said, "Do you really want an answer to all those questions, or are you just venting?" And when he turned around, he saw no one there, but he felt all of these answers to his questions filling his mind, and he decided to write them down. And the result was over 3,000 pages of handwritten notes. Now, I've only read the first book in the series, but it helped me make sense of a lot of questions I had from a spiritual perspective. Actually, it helped me answer some questions I didn't know I had. So for those of you who have not read it, I encourage you to check it out. And for those of you who have read it, I encourage you to dust it off and read it again, because for me, every time I read it, I learn something new. But there's one exchange in the first book where the author asks God why it does not reveal itself in some physical form or by performing some act that would offer evidence of the truth of God, of who God is, beyond doubt or question. Now, God first tells Walsh that there's physical evidence of God all around him, but then when pressed further, God responds to the author with this, and I'm going to paraphrase this first one. God said, "God does not reveal itself through outward observation, but through inward experience. When inward experience has revealed God, outward observation is not necessary. And if outward observation is necessary, inward experience is not possible." Sounds a lot like St. Thomas Aquinas. But there's one passage that I do want to quote directly from the book. And again, the context is the author is asking God, why does he not reveal himself? So God said, "If then revelation is requested, it cannot be had, for the act of asking is a statement that it is not there, that nothing of God is not being revealed. Such a statement produces the experience, for your thought about something is creative, and your word is productive, and your thought and your word together are magnificently effective in giving birth to your reality. Therefore shall you experience that God is not now revealed, for if God were, you would not ask God to be." That dovetails so well into our teaching, because how many times have you heard someone say that they made a prayer that they wanted more money? They said, "God, I need more money." And what the universe hears is, "You're broke." And the universe is responding to that by saying, "Yes, you are broke," as opposed to affirming that I have access to all the riches in the universe and I am prosperous beyond relief. Therefore shall you experience that God is not now relieved or revealed, because if God were, you would not ask God to be. There's so much more I could say about this, about this particular point, and the book Conversations with God in general, but I will save that for the next time I'm invited here to speak, and based on my experience, that'll be in 2029. Now, I said earlier that skeptical doubt is one of the 5 hindrances of Buddhism and can be a trap on our spiritual journey. But the master teacher Buddha said that doubt can also be a teacher. In the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha encouraged healthy, inquisitive doubt. He instructed his followers not to accept teachings blindly out of respect for authority, but to test and investigate things for themselves, to see if they lead to freedom or suffering. And if we look more closely at the story of Thomas from the Bible, we'll see a couple of important things. First of all, Thomas was not a skeptic. He was a loyal follower of the master teacher Jesus. When Jesus stated to his disciples that he was going to return to Judea, his followers did not want him to go, and they didn't want to go either because they knew what was going to happen or what was likely to happen. And Thomas, to his credit, stated to the other disciples that they should all go with Jesus so they might share in his death. So he was quite literally what we would call today a ride or die follower of Jesus. And the other thing to make note of is the reaction of Jesus when he learned that Thomas doubted his resurrection. Unlike when the Pharisees demanded a sign from heaven as proof of Jesus' divinity, Jesus did not refuse Thomas's request, nor did he judge or condemn Thomas for questioning him. No, in that moment, the master teacher Jesus met Thomas's doubt with grace. His response to Thomas's request revealed a case where honest inquiry and doubt, as opposed to skeptical doubt, can lead to a deeper, more personal faith rather than simply being a lack of belief. And there's even a passage in the book of Jude, which is the last book in the New Testament before Revelation, that says, "Have mercy on those who doubt." This is a reminder that doubt isn't a sin, or in the vernacular of New Thought, doubt is not a mistake. It's a human experience that calls for compassion, patience, and grace. And that includes compassion, patience, and grace for others, as well as for ourselves in times of doubt. But don't get it twisted. In the book of John, after Thomas proclaimed, "My Lord and my God," Jesus responded with, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." And there's much more that have been written about Thomas and that chapter in the book of John. I mean, there are theologians that have written dissertations around just that one thing. So I've just kind of scratched the surface of it, and I won't go into any of the details, but if you want to learn more, there's much out there in the public domain. Now, I recently saw a post in one of my social media feeds that was a short video from an AI-generated monk. And I can't give him credit for the content since he's not a real person, but he said something that resonated with me. He said, "Doubt is the wall between thought and form." And we're all familiar with the core principle of science of mind, of creative nature. God thinks and the world comes into being. Likewise, all human accomplishments originate in thought. Our human thinking process is a reflection of the divine creative process in microcosm. And we saw that illustrated in the passage from Conversations with God that I read. But this AI-generated monk was saying that doubt is a disruptor or hindrance to that creative process. But there was a second part to the quote. He said, "Doubt is the wall between thought and form. You do not negotiate with it. You reset your state and re-enter knowing." So in the context of the topic we've been discussing for the past 5 Sundays, in those times where you encounter honest doubt or questions about your faith, take a step back and focus on your core beliefs. If any of you are trained in conflict resolution, you may be familiar with a specific tactic that mediators sometimes use to help 2 parties reach agreement on a contentious issue. And that tactic is to start by getting them to admit the things that they do agree on. That way they can establish some common ground from which to start the discussion. And I'm sure many of you have heard the Zen proverb that says, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." So there are many ways to interpret this proverb, but one way is to simply acknowledge that enlightenment is an inside job. Your outside world has not changed after enlightenment. It's your inside world, or the lens through which you view tasks like chopping wood and carrying water, that have changed. And I could extend this to the topic that we've been discussing this morning by saying doubt is an inside job. So when you encounter doubt on your spiritual journey, keep doing the things and keep believing the things that you did before you encountered that doubt. And for practitioners of New Thought, and that's practitioners with a lowercase p, not just licensed practitioners, you can fall back on things like the 10 core principles of science of mind, or the elements of the statement of being that you recited at the beginning of service here. And ask yourself, what are the parts of our teaching that you do not doubt? Now, there may be one or more of these principles that you're still questioning, and that's okay. Just focus on the ones that you are certain of, those things that you consider to be indisputable or self-evident. Here's one of those indisputable truths from Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind. He said that there is a God or first cause no one can doubt, that the being whom we call God really exists from eternity to eternity is self-evident. So as the AI-generated monk said, don't negotiate with doubt, reset your state and re-enter knowing. Re-enter knowing those things that you have unwavering faith in. If doubt is a wall between thought and form, let faith be a bridge between thought and form. Now, a few minutes ago, I posed the rhetorical question, is it good to doubt or is it bad to doubt? And that question opened the door to our discussion of paradox. But when it comes to the inherent contradictions and examples of paradox, particularly when they involve our faith, our human nature creates a need for us to resolve these contradictions and force the paradox to be rational. This stems from our need for things to make sense. Unlike the master teachers that we study, we often experience discomfort, anxiety, and fear when we have to accept that two things can be contradictory, but both be true. And at the end of the day, I'd venture to say that when we struggle with doubt as it involves our faith, if we drill down and ask ourselves, what is this doubt actually based on, we would discover a fact about ourselves. And that fact is not that we don't have faith in God. So that's a double negative, so I'm going to repeat it again. The fact is not that we don't have faith in God. Rather, the fact is that we don't have the faith of God. But I'll emphasize that while this is fact, this is not truth, and this is not our truth. And what that actually reveals is another paradox of New Thought. Some say we are human beings having a spiritual experience. Some say we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think both are true. But that combination of humanity and divinity is the source of our greatest potential, but also the source of our greatest fears. And it was probably stated best by Marianne Williamson when she said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And that's okay. Until you conquer those fears, continue with your spiritual practices. In other words, continue chopping wood and carrying water. And I'd like to end with one final quote, which to me captures the essence of what we've discussed this morning. It's from an author named Chris Jamie in a book called Killosophy. That's Killosophy. He said, doubt is a question mark. Faith is an exclamation point. The most compelling, believable, realistic stories have included them both. So as we move into prayer, let us take a few deep cleansing breaths as we center ourselves in this moment. I'm going to recite these words in first person, but I invite you to take them, the ones that resonate with you, as your own, and gently set the others aside. This I know for sure. There is one God, one absolute power and first cause to all things. That creative force is present everywhere at every moment, in the mountains and in the valleys, in the light and in the shadows, in the hope and in the fear, in the joy and in the pain, in my moments of faith and in my moments of doubt. Spirit is a transcendent and perfect whole that embraces all these seeming opposites. I am grateful for the awareness that the divinity of God that brings me freedom, prosperity, and peace also allows me to experience bondage, lack, or misery according to my consciousness. Because the divinity of God is inseparable from the divinity in me, I am one with the creative force in the universe. I only need acknowledge this unity and hold it in consciousness for the wonders of this thing called life to be revealed in, as, and through me, every day, in every way. I affirm that all the seeming opposites in the universe and in my life experience are simply unique, individualized expressions of God. Therefore, I embrace the honest doubt that enters my mind as part of my life experience and a manifestation of Spirit on my journey to a greater awareness of my divinity. I give joyful thanks and praise for knowing this is the truth about me and the truth about my life. This gratitude springs forth for me like a light that I shine upon the darkness to enlighten myself and all those around me. And it is from this place of gratitude that I release these words into the universe, knowing that all that I have spoken is true in this moment and forevermore. I let go and I let God do its perfect work as I just allow it to be. And I anchor this treatment as we say together, and so it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee. All right. We'll move right into sharing our abundance. No, we will not. Oh, we will. Um, so, there are multiple ways to share your abundance and to support the work that we do here. And those opportunities are going to show up on the screen soon. In the meantime, do we have someone who... Oh, we're going to do an affirmation of abundance. Thank you. All right, all together. God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. All right. So we have opportunities to donate by mail to our new address, P.O. Box 804, Monterey. You can text to give using the phone number on the screen. And you can also donate online at our website. Or you can experience, you can give love to the basket that's coming around. And I want to say how much we greatly appreciate the sharing of your abundance to us, especially in our new space. All right. So next week, Reverend Robert will be back. We will be back, and he's going to introduce our June series, which is Higher, Deeper Love. And the talk that he will honor us with is show I want to know what love is. Sounds great. All right. I think because we are running out of time, I want to say goodbye to our Facebook and YouTube listeners, and I hope you join us next week for Robert's I Want to Know What Love